Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Hello. How are we all doing, people? Welcome back to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG. My name is Tommo and we are here to talk all about the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, back in a somewhat familiar territory, back in my childhood home. It's a long story, not interesting, not in the podcast today. Welcome everyone here live on YouTube. Lola, Kwame, Kelly, Fives, NDA, Kev, Jerome, Zubair, Shay, Yaramir, Jaylant, Joe, Rayner, Earth, Kuma, Kristen, Harvgoal, and the rest of you. Appreciate you all taking the time. I'm sitting down. Got a bit of a sore back, and that's not helping, but I don't have a standing desk at my mum's gaff, so we will make do, won't we? We will make do, and Minton is just out of shot, having a little kip over there, and if you stick around, maybe I will show you Minton the miniature. You know, I should reward dedication, okay? I should reward dedication. Thank you for all of the trim comments. I'm happy with this kind of length, okay? It gets rid of some of the greys on the side. You can see them a bit. You can definitely see the greys coming in. But, you know, I'm 32, man. Come on. Give me a day off, all right? God, the trauma of getting old. It's coming for all of us, isn't it? But anyway, let's talk all about this weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix, shall we? Round 17 at Baku. Very much excited for this one. It's become a bit of a stalwart on the grid, I feel like, as a circuit, as a racing venue. Very, very unique. And we go back to back from, Monza, where they're both high-speed circuits with not too much medium high-speed corner wise. And that's why I've titled the podcast, or at least thumbnailed the podcast in the way I have, because Max was very, very quick in his Red Bull last weekend in Monza. He won the race pretty convincingly in the end. Can he do the same in Baku? Can he do the same in Baku? Looking good for 52. Thank you, Void. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 52. God forbid. Right, so that's definitely the wrong thing I've clicked. Bosh, circuit overview. Should we have a little look at the Baku street circuit? Shall we, through the streets of Baku? One I would love to go to, one I'd be very interested, fascinated to experience in real life. Hopefully one day I get the opportunity to 6 kilometers around the streets. Not too much undulation, obviously, in that middle sector, the castle chicane. You're kind of going a bit uphill and then you're coming downhill towards the end of that middle sector. But yes, full pin pretty much the entire lap. The C6 tyre is back again this weekend, the one that we saw in Monaco. Added an additional softer compound to try and encourage teams to go for a 2-stop, because 2-stops tend to be a bit more interesting. Now, I'm all for it. I think they should have brought the C6 to Monza. They didn't. They did bring the C6 to Baku. I'm not sure if that was the plan from the start of the year, because I know Pirelli earlier in the season did post a graphic outlining the intended tyre compounds for the entire season. I can't remember if they changed to fit, because Monza, again, 2-stop would have been lovely. Always adds, not always, but most of the time, you're adding a bit more intrigue, a bit more unpredictability with pit stops. Talk all about pit stops at McLaren, can't we? And we'll see how it goes. Weather-wise, it's looking like it's going to be pretty chill. Fridays, high of 26, low of, I can't even read that because I'm too far away from my laptop, but you can probably read it. I hope you can read it, otherwise it's pointless putting it there. Not scheduled rain. I saw some people saying that there might be rain this weekend. According to the old Googs, right? According to Google, ow, my back. There is no scheduled rain, but obviously weather reports can change a lot going into it. It's probably not going to be a wet race, but wet races always bring up surprises. So hopefully a wet banger. We would all take a wet banger. I'm here right now and it's raining. Kirsten, are you in Azerbaijan? Well, there you go. Well, fortunately, Kirsten, unfortunately, should I say, Kirsten, the race is not on a Wednesday, which is today. So if it's raining today, is it going to rain Sunday? Doesn't look like it's gonna, but you never know. You never know. Have we had rain in Baku before, Avkid? Surely we have. We've had this race since, 2016 European Grand Prix. Or was it 2017 European Grand Prix? And then they changed it to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Regardless. So super soft tyres. Shouldn't rain this weekend, but maybe. Obviously, very unique characteristics. A big challenge. Walls are right there. Big punishment if you make mistakes. We've seen many a high-profile mistake. I mean, we saw... Was it Nick De Vries, wasn't it? Last year, he clipped the wall on the inside. Was that year before last? I've lost all concept of time. When was Nick De Vries in the Racing Bulls V-carb Towery thing? Oh, my brain. We've had like a week off of F1 and my brain has turned into scrambled egg. But there you go. 51 laps should be, hopefully, a bit of a corker. Was it 2023? There we go. 2023. Lovely jubbly. Thank you. Thank you, lovely. And this is the beauty of doing this podcast live on YouTube, because when I'm stupid, I've got all of you here to give me the correct information. Although sometimes you do try to misinform me. I know what you're playing at. Try and trip me up by just saying, oh, it's a sprint weekend this weekend. Well, I know it's not. But then I'm like second guessing myself. Well, is it actually a sprint weekend? And I'm live, so I can't get this wrong. Even though I can get this wrong, because of course I get things wrong all the time. And breathe. He said the line. Say the line, Bard. So what happened last time out? Well, last year's Azerbaijan Grand Prix was a bit of a banger. A dry banger, but a banger nonetheless. Of course, Oscar Piastri won ahead of Charles Leclerc and George Russell. But damn, that was a tasty race. I watched the highlights just before this stream, just to refresh my memory on how things panned out. And that was a very, very interesting one. We had Lando Norris going out in Q1, which meant he had to put a recovery drive in. Managed to pass Max in the end. This was not a good weekend for Max last time out. And it was a very strong weekend for Sergio Perez. You've got to say, if Lando hadn't played the team game, held up Checo in that middle sector, allowed Oscar to get a safe pit stop and Checo not to undercut him, Checo could have won this race. Checo had the pace to win this race. Now, does that bode well for Yuki Tsunoda in his Red Bull this weekend? I don't know. I don't want to predict it. But just please, Yuki. Please. And if you haven't seen... By the way, all right? All my videos, I talk about some nonsense about drivers making mistakes or what I think teams and shouldn't do. I get a literal F1 driver on my channel, Yuki Tsunoda, and it's my worst performing video in absolutely ages. It's got like 20k. It's me and Yuki Tsunoda shooting, chatting, bantering. And no one wanted to watch it. I love this game sometimes. I love this game. But do check that out. The latest video on the Tommo YouTube channel. Me and Yuki Tsunoda having a laugh. And if you haven't watched it, then Alita, thank you, Alita. Yeah, I can watch it again if you want. Does that count as 2 views on YouTube if someone watches it twice? I don't know. Maybe. It can't hurt it. I will say I will accept algorithm did me dirty. I will purely blame the algorithm, not myself, for that one, because accountability is is not something I'm going to take today. But yeah, go check that out if you like, because Yuki's a good lad. Look, I've been propping Yuki for a long time. Checo always seemed to come alive around street circuits, but I think also it's the lack of medium high speed around a track like Baku can hopefully allow Yuki to flourish a bit more in the way that Checo was able to. Now, I know Checo was a particular street king, right? He knew his way around a street circuit. Again, whether it's Singapore, wherever it may be, if it's a street circuit, there's not much medium high speed. And hopefully, I'm just looking for something, because I really want Yuki to come good. And the noise, obviously, as Isaac Hadjar's performances start to get there, the noise is inevitable. Of course it is. But come on, Yuki. Please have a good weekend. But I'm not going to predict it, because that's definitely cursing him. But yeah, unbelievable race last year. Super interesting. That Piastri move on Charles Leclerc into turn 1. He's already got a hell of a highlight reel when it comes to overtakes as Oscar Piastri, and that was a banger, because I rate Charles Leclerc incredibly highly, and to pull Charlie's pants down like he did, impressive. Not the best choice of words there, but never mind. And we, of course, also had Charles putting in a big defence to Sergio Perez, which then allowed Carlos Sainz to get ahead of Checo. And then they crashed into each other, which was a shame because Checo had put in a real shift that race. And again, could have easily on another day won that Grand Prix, didn't in the end and ended up in the wall. And you got to think how close the Constructors was in the end. All those points lost for Carlos Sainz. Ferrari could have won the Constructors last year, which is crazy to think. Just how dominant the McLaren is at the minute. But it just wasn't the case last year. It just wasn't. But yeah, no, it's... my expectations are high. My expectations are high. I think the McLaren, their big advantage does appear to be in tyre management. And when you are at a track that is not so sensitive when it comes to tyre management, for example, Zandvoort, you're basically never driving in a straight line because you're constant corners. When you are around a track that is enabling Pirelli to be like, boom, you can have the softest range of tyres, that inherently means it is a low deg track. And at these low deg tracks, that's where I think you'll see Red Bull with Max, maybe the Ferraris, maybe George and his Mercedes, actually being a threat to the McLarens, because the McLarens are quick everywhere, but their big advantage is when it's in hot temperatures and there's a lot of wear going in to the compound, and that's not seemingly going to be the case in Baku. So fingers crossed, it means something is a little bit interesting. And yes, Kira, thank you for reminding me, we also had the mini DRS come to light again, the highlights, the Twitter highlights of Oscar Piastri's rear wing very slightly opening at the corners, which, you know, the whole flexi-wing scandal was kind of a bit of a waste of time in the end, wasn't it? Kind of a waste of time. Winch, good to see you, man. Been a while. Max might have a better chance in the Cayman. We will talk about Max and his Cayman very shortly. Do not worry. Do not worry, Winchy. Not by any stretch. Right, so let's reflect now on the quality head-to-head so far this season. 30 qualifying sessions in total, 24 race, 6 sprint. We are 19 of 30 complete. And this is how the average gaps between teammates are looking so far. Of course, the biggest gap on average, Max Verstappen ahead of Yuki Tsunoda by 0.604 of a second. Then we've got Russell Antonelli and Alonso Stroll, about 0.3 there. Gasly, Colapinto, Hajar Lawson, about 0.2. Leclerc Hamilton, just under 2.174. And then Piastri Norris is basically a 10th, advantage Oscar. And then Bortoleto Hulkenberg and Albon and Sainz, about 0.5 advantage the first driver that I'm saying, by the way. And then finally, Ocon Behrman, basically nothing between them in terms of average deficit. And I think, you know, at this point of the season, you know, we're over halfway now. I think the most impressive of these to me is Bortoleto in terms of qualifying. Max putting 0.6 on his teammate obviously is impressive. There's a lot of context behind that. Kind of goes without saying. But I think Bortoleto has been the star of qualifying this year. Possibly. Look, it's very hard to compare teams towards the midfield and the back towards teams at the very front. But I've got to say, I think Wade Gabbage jumped in with very little preparation, and also having been, you know, back-to-back F3, F2, but also part of McLaren, not even part of Sauber, joins Sauber on a whim, doesn't get the same preparation that an Ollie Behrman or a Kimi Antonelli or a Liam Lawson even got coming into Formula One. And Hulkenberg's known for his one-lap prowess, and he's averaging 0.5 quicker, which is incredibly impressive. Alonso putting 0.3 on Stroll as well. Very impressive when you consider how close average qualifying pace Stroll and Vettel were. Like, it was much closer than 0.3. And I don't think Stroll's got worse. I just think he's still very susceptible to a rookie error, which is the most frustrating thing about Lance, because there is quality there. We just don't see it often enough. And actually, you know what? Gasly, Colapinto only being 0.2 off of Gasly, 0.208. By this stage, given, again, the lack of preparation for Franco coming in mid-season, part of Williams last year, never having driven an Alpine chassis, would have helped the engine understanding. Oh, wait, no, of course not, because Alpine currently run their own engines. They've not moved to Mercedes yet, so a change of engine as well, a change of chassis, change of environment, blah, blah, blah. Colapinto, 0.2 off Gasly. That's actually pretty strong in favour of Franco, in my opinion. But yeah, Bortoletto over a lap has done a superb job. And obviously Hadjar putting 2 tenths on Lawson. Actually, yeah, they've both been stellar. Can't argue with that. They have both been absolutely stellar. So driver standings are as follows after 16 of 24 rounds so far this year. Of course, Oscar Piastri on top, 324 points. Ahead of Lando Norris on 293, a 31-point gap. Of course, in Monza, the whole switchback of positions, the fallout of that. I wonder how Oscar is going to conduct himself for the rest of the season. I wonder how Lando's going to conduct himself for the rest of the season. I think the team have to... this was always the reason a call like this was going to be controversial, because where do you draw the line? You know, Lando had a pit stop that was delayed by 4 seconds relative to Oscar's. It was a 5.9 versus a 1.9. What if your pit stop's delayed by 3 seconds relative to your teammate, or 2, or 1, or half a second? McLaren have put themselves in a position where, you know, they are trying to manage this as best they can. They've looked at what's happened in the past and they don't want it to be messy. And I understand that as a principle. However, as a fan, I want the sauce. I want the juice. And it's going to happen. One of them's going to have to break rank at some point and be like, no, you know what? I'm holding this position because it's worth it. And you can definitely argue, you know, the fact that that wasn't for a win probably was worth, in the grand scheme of things, for Oscar to let Lando back through to keep the team on side. If that's for a win, and say that Monza race is, I don't know, 5 races down the line, we've got 4 to go, and he's being asked to give Lando the win when he's lucked into it, sure, but luck is part of racing. There is it's not a perfect way, and I'm sure McLaren understand that there's not a perfect way of managing things. They are trying their best here, but at the end of the day, someone's going to have to act in self-interest at some point. Otherwise, you might lose the championship, and you might not get another chance. Because yes, Rob Marshall is clutch, of course he is, and he's going to be working on the 26 car. And I'm sure will produce a very, very capable 26 competitor, but there are no guarantees of anything in this world. No guarantees of anything. Right, hang on. Nathaniel. Hi, Tom, and my girlfriend is asking to see Minton. Where is he? Okay. Tell you what. If you've got this far in the stream, if you've got 19 minutes into the stream, I will not deny you Minton any... Well, actually, we'll let him decide. Minton. He's not moved a muscle. Minton, the people want to see you. And again, if you are listening to the audio only podcast, then sorry. Sorry that I can't find a... Look, I'm calling him. Chat, I'm calling him. I'm sorry. Surely I should allow Minton to exercise his own self-autonomy as to whether he wants to be... Max, you're saying say the TREATS word. Train your dog. Try better. Listen, look, if he doesn't want to come out, just tell him his favourite word. You all asking me to emotionally manipulate my son in order to get him to come on stream. Right, well, first thing, I'm going to pull the cover back, which is going to release the awful bed sheets that my mum has in this room. And there he is curled up. You can't quite see him, so let me just move back. Oh, here he is. Hello. He is here. Why did you ignore me, Minton? What was that all about? Are you enjoying your kip too much? Eh? You sleepy boy. I did this. Kirsten, you said I disturbed his peace. You were all asking me to disturb his peace, all right? Don't put this on me, all right? I am not responsible for this. This is all you, chat. If you've got anything to say, Minton, say it now. You're literally right on the mic. Go on, say something. Contribute. Come on, earn your wage, right? I should start paying him because then I could get more tax efficient by paying Minton, but he's not doing enough to earn a salary, so I'm not going to be able to pay him one. All right, go on then. Let's see if he might just curl up here, actually. Right, why don't you just curl up there? Look, if you curl up there, you're like perfectly positioned. The thing is, he'll want to get under look at these ugly covers. No, he wants to get under there. He wants to get under. What are you going to do? We'll keep him in the background as we continue with the stream. Oh, yeah, he's going under. Yeah, okay. Right, go on. Under you go. Right, we're just going to have the... You can't see him anyway. Right, we're just going to have these absolutely butters bed sheets behind me for the rest of the... Let the poor guy sleep. I agree, Sabra, I agree. We'll let the poor guy sleep for the remainder of the stream. He's just out of shot there, but you can't see him anyway. Right, okay, excellent. That is Minton time done. We spent 3 minutes on Minton, which I think is a fair exchange of value for Minton the miniature. Oh, right. So yeah, those are the driver standings. Obviously, yes, that's the fight at the top. Otherwise, none of these driver standings are particularly important or interesting outside the fight for the win. But of course, team standings are a little bit different. So obviously, McLaren have got this wrapped. Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull. If Red Bull have found something and can be quick in Baku, that doesn't mean they're going to be quick in, say, Singapore, in Sao Paulo, in Mexico, in Abu Dhabi, in Qatar, etc., etc. So it's hard to see Red Bull getting any better than fourth. But if this floor adjustment that they made can bring performance for the remainder of the season, then maybe, perhaps. And obviously Vegas is a good example where that McLaren ability to manage its tyres so well might actually work against them because it's so cold over there and they won't necessarily be able to generate heat in their tyres. We'll see. So yeah, I think obviously the battle for P2 where Lewis is doing enough and he's certainly doing more than Antonelli to score, so I reckon things will probably stay the same as they are for the top five. I think Alex is and Carlos is driving well enough to deserve way more points than he has. I still think it's crazy that he's P18, but he's been very, very unlucky this year. The positions don't reflect the gap between the two because there's not much of a gap between the two. Alex has definitely got a bit of an advantage, generally speaking, but not the way it looks. But yeah, P6 to P9 is going to go down to the wire. I think, you go to some weekends and you think, Racing Bulls are best the rest. And then kind of Monza was a bit of a slog for them. Sauber, who knows? Haas are up and down as well. Honestly, I wouldn't want to call it, but it is interesting. And I think the sport, we know the ATR, the sliding scale, we know the prize money. And you're never going to get people super gassed for, who's P6 in the constructors? But I do think the sport maybe could do more to really highlight that battle. I've mentioned this before when I went to Haas a couple of months ago and speaking to some of the team there, and they were like, yeah, we've put more into this year than we were expecting because of how close it is, and it might be worth it, if you put a little bit more resource, a little bit more money, not into 26, but into 25, where you were expecting to offset most of it. If it can gain you a couple of positions, that could be another, 25 mil, maybe. Who knows what the actual price is between positions, but it could be worth it in the end. It could be worth it. But we'll see. All we know is Alpine definitely going to be last. Sorry, Enstone. Apologies for that. Right. Bangers and clangers then, shall we? Let's get into it. Let's talk about who we think is going to bang, who we think is going to clang at the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Starting with me, my prediction to win the race. I've gone Max. I think that for all the reasons that he was quick in Monza, I think he will be quick in Baku. I think he's had a very fun weekend racing around the Nürburgring, which we will get into shortly. And yeah, I think Max is gonna be quick, and I think he could well win this Grand Prix. I'm not like certain. I'm not like easy dub, but I think Max has got a chance to win it. I think he's got more chance to win Baku than I think Interlagos. If it rains, you always got to put Max up there, of course. But in terms of dry conditions for the rest of the season, I think this is Max and Red Bull's best shot at a win. But we'll see. We shall see. F2 this weekend as well. Is it? To me, I didn't even check. I'll be honest, I didn't even check. But F2 this weekend, lovely jubbly, happy days. So I've gone Max to win. But what about you? 811 of you voted. Thank you very much for voting. Don't forget to subscribe to the Tommo YouTube channel to see the polls, my community tab polls, and tadpoles, my community tadpoles. That makes sense because I'm a frog. And also on Twitter, at Tommo McCluskey. Instagram, at Tommo McCluskey as well. Sometimes I post the polls on there. I usually don't because I usually forget, to be honest. It's not in my workflow. What can I say? And you've gone for race winner with 52% of the vote. Oscar Piastri. Big percentage, big belief in Oscar. It was a big performance last year, don't get me wrong. Would have been very interesting to see if Perez could have won that race, though, if Lando hadn't held him up. And obviously the crash with Sainz didn't help either, did it? But you've gone Oscar, 52% of you, 15% Verstappen, 15% Leclerc. So Verstappen just got a little bit more than Leclerc, 14% Lando Norris. So vast majority of you think Oscar's going to win it. Over half of you think Oscar's going to win this race. As for banger drive, I've gone Franco. And you know what? He had a perler of a race for Williams. Did a fantastic job jumping in late on. He's going to a track that he's raced at before because he raced there last year and did well, got point. And I think Franco's trending in a positive direction, actually, relative to Pierre in qualifying. I think he did a decent job in Monza. When you look at his race performance, I think that Franco is going to do all right. And I think he's probably going to do enough to merit keeping the seat. Even though Jack didn't deserve to lose it in the first place, both things can be correct. And I think Franco's going to not necessarily score points because the Alpine is not quick in a straight line and it struggles with its ERS. But relative to Pierre, I think Franco's going to do a good job and I think he's going to put himself in with a chance of banger this weekend. That's what I'm saying. As for you, 28% of you have gone Charles Leclerc. 12% Max Verstappen, 9% Franco Colapinto, and 6% Alex Albon. A lot of you went Charles Leclerc for banger driver. Very interesting. Obviously, I'm a great enjoyer of Charles Leclerc. I'm a fellow Leclerc connoisseur. Leclerc connoisseur. That kind of, there's something in that, Charles. If you're watching, something in that. Some kind of branding exercise. Leclerc connoisseur. That's someone's Twitter handle. That's got to be someone's Twitter handle at Leclerc connoisseur, surely. But yeah, 12% Verstappen, 9% Colapinto, 6% Alex Albon. Come on, Alex. Williams in a straight line are still good. Sainz, come on. Sainz is probably overdue the better weekend, and we know the rule is that both Williams drivers can't be good at the same time. They can't have a good weekend at the same time. So one of them may be good, the other may be SH, and the rest. So we'll see. We will see. Clanger driver, I've gone Kimi Antonelli. It's been tough as of late, and Baku is a track that bites. So Kimi's been having struggles. He's had, what was Toto calling it? Multiple times he called it what did he call it? Something. Toto said Kimi's weekend was unremarkable, I want to say. Was it unremarkable? I think. I don't know. But either way, it's because Baku is particular biter. Underwhelming. Not unremarkable. Underwhelming. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Kwame, XT, Avkid. So, yeah. When it rains, it pours, right? Look, I hope that's not the case, but I've got to put someone as clanger, and I've gone with Kimi this weekend. And you have gone with Lewis Hamilton. 16% of the votes. 13% for Kimi Antonelli, 11% Lance Stroll, and 9% Colapinto. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, and I was listening to podcasts from the race earlier, and they kind of talked about this with Carlos, and I think this rings true for Carlos and Lewis. You know, they joined Ferrari and Williams respectively. Well, Carlos joined Williams because he didn't want to leave Ferrari in the first place, right? But he picked Williams. He picked Williams, and Lewis picked Ferrari for 26, not for 25. 25 was always going to be a transitional year, and, you know, you learn the lie of the land, you get used to that environment, and then in 26, you've got a new car for everyone, fresh start for everyone, even Charles Leclerc's got a new Ferrari to get used to in 26, and you hope that you've made the right call. You hope that the engine you've got underneath you and the chassis you've got underneath you can deliver you a world title. So, yeah, look, it's not been great for both of them, but 25 was never the focus, the center of attention. This is building blocks to get to where you need to go. So, fingers crossed. These slightly smaller cars as well. In fact, I can't spoil this. Oh, okay. What can I say? So, I spoke to someone who has driven the 26 car in the sim. I will not reveal who. And I asked them, does the car feel noticeably smaller? And they actually said yes. Because I was like, it's only 20 centimetres shorter and 10 centimetres narrower. And I was like, can you feel that difference in the sim around like a track like Monaco? And their response was yes. Like, not, oh, it's a tiny little 2006 car, but like noticeably smaller. So fingers crossed, these cars do feel noticeably smaller enough that we can get a bit of better racing. That's why I asked the question. But yeah, I love everyone's trying to guess it in the chat. I'm not saying nothing. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton clanger driver for you this weekend. Banger team for me, I've gone Red Bull. I think Max is going to be quick. I'm really hoping Yuki can find his inner Checo and have a worldie like Checo did around Baku last year. So that's why I'm going for Red Bull Racing. And you've gone Ferrari, 22% of the vote, 19% Williams, 17% McLaren, and 10% Alpine. Lovely jubbly. Ferrari, 22%. Baku, they do tend to be good round here, but I don't know. I think McLaren will be quicker than Ferrari this weekend. I think Max could make the difference and put himself right in amongst it. I mean, if Max, Lando and Oscar finish the race, I think them three are taking the podium positions. That's all I'll say. That's all I will say. Thank you, Squibsley. I'm glad you like the haircut. I'm seeing very contrasting reactions to the haircut. I didn't even think it was that different, but apparently it is. In the live chat. Oh dear. And then finally, clanger team, I've gone Haas because they're up and down, and I expect them to be down this weekend. Not got much more context to add than that because it's a prediction, and who knows, right? Who blooming knows? And you've gone Alpine, 32% of the vote, which does make sense with the PU disadvantage and the issues, but that would be too easy. So I've gone Haas because why not? Why not? Thank you, Zanny, for saying it's okay. Oh, love it. Right, so those are your bangers and clangers, and these are mine. We're all different this weekend. Every single pick is different. Who's going to come out on top? That remains to be seen. Chances of Ollie grabbing a race ban. Oh, I know, right? How he didn't get his... I feel like Haas should have appealed Ollie's penalty points for his contact with Carlos, because that was... I mean, Carlos was... It was the right decision to rescind Carlos's Zandvoort penalty, but to give Ollie penalty points for Carlos just turning across him when he hadn't completed the overtake in Monza was weird to me. But there you go. Thank you, Avkid, for the forehead banter. Finally, we've got to talk about Max, because there wasn't actually a huge amount of news in this kind of week off. But Max Verstappen, he loves his old racing, doesn't he? He was on it in a Cayman, a detuned Porsche Cayman, about 120 horsepower down compared to the other cars in the class. Because he wants to race GT3s, he wants to do more GT driving around the Nordschleife, has very specific rules, so you have to go through the Nordschleife's, I guess, program to get a license to race around the Nordschleife in GT3s, which he now has the A license needed to do that. Just because you're an F1 world champion doesn't get you a free pass. You still have to jump through all the hoops that anyone else would. And yeah, he seemed to do a pretty good job. The live stream for the Nordschleife event he was racing in with Chris Lullum, one of the Team Redline guys who jumped in after Max, got insane views, way more than usual. So there's a lot of interest in Max doing this. And yeah, I really think that someone as high profile as Max, especially if he is to retire from F1 at the end of 28, he would be leaving at the kind of peak, but he wouldn't be, Rosberg won a title, left and stopped racing. Max would be leaving F1 at his peak and would bring a lot of audience to the GT, endurance racing, WEC, whatever he chooses to compete in scene. And I'm sure Ford will be interested and being like, hang on, Max, right, let's get you in a Le Mans seat in 2029 or something. It's very interesting, very interesting. I think, we've seen, Alonso go over to Le Mans and win. We've seen Hülkenberg win in Le Mans as well. But Max going at the peak of his powers in his early 30s would be huge, would be really big. To see Max around Bathurst would be c'est magnifique. I would love to see that. So yeah, Max got the license. He was meant to drive in a second car, but the car crashed in quali and couldn't compete. So because he didn't get to drive both cars, he had to get special dispensation to get this A license because he was meant to drive in two different cars. And they gave it to him because obviously it's fine. Duh. But they did give him, they still had to give him special dispensation. And of course Kubica as well, Halita. Yeah, Kubica, Giovinazzi and all. The list goes on. But yeah, cool to see. And something that, I don't know, I remember a clip popping up of when Fernando was doing IndyCar and Zach Brown was being asked about it and Christian was like, I wouldn't let my driver do that. But of course, at Red Bull Racing, Max, he's in a position where if he wants to do something, he's going to do it. And I don't think anyone's going to try and stop him. So, yeah, good for him, man. Max, I think I really like what Max is doing for the sim racing community and how he is, and Chris, who's racing alongside him, is a sim racer. Bringing those two worlds together, I think that's a big part of how we make this sport. It's never going to be cheap, far from it. It's always going to be expensive, in fact. But at least make it somewhat viable that someone, not anyone, again, you're never going to make it cheap, but bring that barrier to entry, that financial barrier to entry down a bit. I hope that's part of the future of motorsport. And I think Max has got a part to play in that. So that's pretty cool. Right. Anything I've missed, chat? I'm going to check the old supers. Thank you, Ragav. Appreciate the super chat. Very kind of you. Tomo, I know you're an Albon fan. Oh, where's this going? But please tell us Carlos fans it will get better next year. I cannot believe the amount of bad luck he has had. Well, I'm not going to make promises I can't keep, Ragav. Look, Carlos is more than good enough. I think that qualifying deficit between the two speaks volumes, right? Because obviously Alex had an advantage at the start of the year, and the fact that average is now half a tenth shows that Carlos overlapping that Williams is absolutely there with Alex. If not, if anything, over recent weekends has been slightly quicker than Alex over a lap. So that's something to hold on to and feel positive about. Also, of course, Williams have zero motivation to prioritise Albon over Sainz. They spent big to get Carlos in. They'll want to prove that, to Carlos, we could be a serious team from 26. And you've got to look at where Williams have come from, in the not too distant past. They were, 2019, they were an absolute dumpster fire. And even in Alex's early years at Williams, it was not good. It was tough, and it took time for Vowles and De Rilton, and it's still taking time now. You know, a team doesn't go from absolute abject rubbish and suffering from an absolute lack of investment for many, many years that Williams were, to a top team, all the bells and whistles, smashing it. That doesn't happen in 5 years. That's like a 10-year project to build it, to meet what Mercedes and McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull and all these massive teams have. So I think there's been a lot of bad luck. You know, Carlos is not afraid to get caught up in a bit of a... And again, most of the time it's not his fault, but he does get caught in a few too many squabbles, let's say. But look, he's a great driver. You look at how close he was to Charles for so much of that time as Ferrari teammates. And Williams have said from the start, you know, it's 26 or nothing for us. So let's hope that pays dividends. Let's hope for Albon and Science fans that Mercedes are actually sick and create a great engine, and Williams' early shift to focus on 26 delivers results that will be quicker than Alpine, quicker than Mercedes, and ideally quicker than McLaren. Listen, Pat Fry's a clever bloke. Rob Marshall's also a very clever bloke, but you never know. So yeah, I wouldn't. Like I said, it's a transition year, so don't get too despondent, Science fans. I think that the way forward is still there. Absolutely. Right, we've been live for 42 minutes. Anything else, chat? I'm just going to focus on you lot here on the live chat. Anything else I haven't covered? Anything interesting? What are we talking about? Someone mentioned about the alternative point system. Yes, ATZ. I think a couple of you mentioned this. The alternative point system, where everyone gets points. Yeah, I've still got the spreadsheet saved, so perhaps later in the year I'll probably not do a run-in total. I don't know, maybe. I've got the spreadsheet, and I feel like maybe in the off-season that could be a video worth doing, or just updating on, you know, Twitter, on community page, whatever. For the alternative point system where everyone gets points. Bit fairer. Certainly more equitable. Drivers that should be higher should be lower, aren't. It punishes... It rewards consistency, giving everyone points, ultimately. The current point system really rewards the peaks of those mid to low field cars. And doesn't punish the troughs, because P11 or P20 is still nil point. Sprint races for 26. Yes, Santos. I did forget about that, because we've got the sprint races for 2026 announced, and it's going to be China, which I'm cool with. I like China. Good track. It's going to be Miami. Not so sure about that. Montreal. Love Montreal. More Montreal, the better. Love it. Silverstone. Superb. Happy with that. Zandvoort. It's going to be the final Zandvoort, so fine. But it's not going to be a great sprint unless it rains. But it is, again, I've said this in the past. In 23, when I went to the Austria sprint, I saw the wet sprint race and then flew home Sunday and watched the dry main race. So it was kind of cool seeing both conditions. That's always an ideal for a sprint weekend. If you could just put the sprinklers on Saturday. Bernie was right all along. And then Singapore sprint, that's a weird one. That is a strange one for a sprint race. So yeah, I mean, look, China, Canada, Great Britain, yes. Miami, Zandvoort, Singapore, no. Actually, I think they're all bad sprint, not even just mediocre ones. I think they're bad choices for sprint weekend. I think you should have Austria in there. You should have Interlagos in there. And you should have... If we're trying to build like a dream sprint calendar. Because I'm happy with China in there. I'm happy with Silverstone in there. And I'm happy with the other one that I've just forgotten. because Canada, there we go. Chuck in Interlagos, chuck in Austria, and throw in... Ooh, what other one would I put in? I would put in... Not sure. I don't know. Monaco, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Vegas? Nah. Monza? Nah. Bahrain? Don't mind Bahrain, actually. Kota would be cool for us. I feel like for a sprint, I don't know about you, I feel like a sprint you need a short track. And I know Silverstone's not a short track, right? So I'm immediately, being a hypocrite, I guess. But I know, I just envisage, and I don't know, that's why I feel like it works. But Bahrain, I'll take Bahrain, actually. Bahrain, yeah, chuck the outer circuit, the Sakir lap of Bahrain. Bosh. Happy days, job done. Easy. That's something they should think about with sprints, actually. Yes, tracks that have alternative formats, alternative layouts. Again, Bahrain, good example. Use the outer loop for the sprint. Use the main loop for the Grand Prix. If you brought back Le Castellet, which I know they're not gonna, that has about 1 billion different track permutations, routes. I'm sure Silverstone... I know Silverstone definitely has some alternative layouts. You don't want to do it in such a way that the fans can't see. I guess that's one thing. But like, you imagine you bought your weekend ticket, and then for the Saturday race, and you're at Bahrain on the on the centre bit, and then you're sat there, and you just the cars are just 2 miles away because you're sat right in the middle of the track, and they're coming nowhere near you. That would be annoying. But anyway, reverse grid sprints, I don't think is necessary. I think you build a formula that makes the cars more competitive and they can race wheel to wheel. I therefore think you don't need to have a reverse grid. Reverse grid is like papering over a problem that I think can be solved further back, further back down the line. But yeah, anyway, that's my thought on the sprints. Some are good, some are not so good. F2 predictions for Baku. I've got no. I mean, F2 is an absolute shenanigans. So anything could happen. I have zero informed prediction, Jaden. Got to say, for F2. I mean, Fornaroli has been consistently quick this year. That's why he's leading the championship. So, but I'm just going to pick Leo up because he's not part of a driver academy, is he? And I wonder if he's just choosing to. It's a risky game to play, isn't it? But you got to think, where's the door going to open? Because we've just had this big influx of rookies into Formula One. Are we going to now see it take a few years for any more rookies to come in? Are you looking at a Hülkenberg or a Hamilton? Because if Hamilton leaves, then Behrman probably steps in, and then that opens up a seat at Haas. If Hülkenberg retires, which I don't necessarily think that's going to happen anytime soon because of the Audi projects, and he'll want to be there for that. But maybe he does a couple of years at Audi. Maybe then he wants to chuck it in. But yeah, it's hard to see opportunities. I think Fornaroli needs to, I guess, bide his time, think carefully. Luke Browning's been quick. He has. Fornaroli seems to be in a bit of a Drogovic situation, Alexander. Kind of agree. Right. Everyone, I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate you all taking the time. Thank you for putting up with the horrible, disgusting, awful bed sheets in the backdrop, which I'm actually going to... Let's see if... Oh, there he is. Oh, look, you can just see his ear. There you go. There's Minton's ear for you on the stream. Thank you all for taking the time. Don't forget to like the stream. Also, if you've made it to the end and you've not left yet, well done. Can you please let me know in the comments if you're here on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, in the comments, whatever. If you could ask Laurent Mekies a question, and I'm not talking about like what's your favourite colour. I'm talking about like a specific, interesting question that you think will elicit an answer that is we've not heard before. What would you ask him? Let me know in the comments of this YouTube video, live stream, podcast, or however you can comment. Not in the live chat. Save it. or write it in the live chat if you are here live, and then copy it and paste it in the comments. I want to know, what would you ask Laurent Mekies if you had the opportunity to ask him a question? There we go. Done. Appreciate you all taking the time. Cowrie, Yaramir, Fives, Famke, Joe, Max, Jay, Jaden, Avkid, Shiv, Ricardo, Akshay, Yaramir, ATZJ, Rainer, Max, Jithu, McFillan, Kwame, Cowrie, Zani. Appreciate you all taking the time. Pleasure as always. I will see you on Sunday. And go and watch my Yuki video that no one watched. All right? If the algorithm's not helping me out, then you've got to help me out. Okay? I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. My identity is attached to views on YouTube. Right. Good boy, Minton. Thank you all. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.